I will not go inside that room.
Every wife in this compound has done it. You are not better than them.
Then tell me where they are now. Because I have not met a single one.
They died. That is what happens when a wife dishonors tradition.
Rebecca, just do it. It is nothing.
You are telling me to walk into a locked room with your mother after 3 wives, and you are calling it nothing.
Lower your voice.
The room had no windows. That was the first thing Rebecca noticed. Not the smell of herbs, not the low ceiling, not the way Mama Chioma held the door open like she was offering a gift. It was the absence of light. A room built deliberately to hold darkness. Rebecca did not go inside. She stood in the compound of the Okafor family home in Calabar on a Tuesday evening in late October. Her yellow Ankara blouse bright against the grey of old clay walls, and she said no. Not loudly, not with drama, she simply stopped walking and said no. And the compound, which had been buzzing with the noise of relatives arriving for the family's annual gathering, went completely silent. She had been married to Kenneth Okafor for 7 months. 7 months of learning his silences, his habits, his particular way of folding into himself whenever his mother entered a room. 7 months of noticing things she had not yet named. The way Kenneth never mentioned his first wife except to say she passed. The way he referred to his second as someone who didn't survive the climate. The way the third, a woman named Adana, whose photograph Rebecca had found inside an old Bible, was explained away as a woman who had a weak heart. 3 wives, 3 deaths, and Kenneth was 41 years old. Rebecca was 34. She was a secondary school biology teacher from Port Harcourt with sharp eyes and a sharper mind, and she had married Kenneth believing his grief was genuine and his love was real. She had moved to Calabar for his transfer. She had packed her books and her peace and her whole life into his, but she had not packed away her instincts. The fattening room tradition Mama Chioma had explained 3 days earlier was sacred. A new bride entering the Okafor compound must spend 1 night inside the initiation room, fasting, praying, and receiving the spiritual marking of the oldest woman in the family. It bound her to the bloodline. It made her truly a wife. Rebecca listened politely. She asked 2 questions. Who performed the marking? Mama Chioma herself. What did the marking involve? Herbs pressed to the skin, and oil rubbed at the base of the neck. A prayer spoken over her while she slept. While she slept. Rebecca had gone back to her room that evening and sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. Kenneth had been downstairs with his uncles. She had taken out her phone and quietly searched. Fattening room tradition Calabar. Spiritual wife initiation. Herbs used in traditional bride marking. She did not sleep well. And now she was standing in the compound saying no. And Mama Chioma's face had shifted from warmth to something older and harder. And Kenneth had appeared in the doorway of the main house, wearing an expression Rebecca had never seen on him before. Not quite anger, not quite fear, but something wedged tightly between the two. Mama Chioma, the heavy-set older woman in a dark wrapper and coral beads, said the ancestors would not receive a wife who dishonored a family. She said every woman who entered that room came out a true Okafor. She said Rebecca was bringing shame on a husband who had chosen her above his family's wishes. Rebecca listened. Then she asked the question that cracked everything open. Where are they buried? The compound went still again. A different kind of stillness this time. The uncles who had been seated on wooden benches stopped moving, An aunt who had been braiding a child's hair let her hands drop. Even the evening birds seemed to pause. Mama Chioma said they were buried in peace. Rebecca said she would like to visit the graves before she made any decision about the room. Kenneth said her name once. Just her name, Rebecca. The way a man says a name when he is warning and pleading at the same time. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she went inside the main house, walked up the stairs, and locked the bedroom door behind her. She did not sleep that night. She sat on the floor with her back against the bed and her phone in her hands, and she searched until her eyes burned. Traditional herb poisoning, West Africa. Slow-acting plant toxins used in rituals. Calabar bean toxicity. Plant native to Cross River State with sedative or lethal properties. The Calabar bean, Physostigma venenosum. A climbing plant native to West Africa, used historically in trial by ordeal. A poison that mimics natural death, slowed heart rate, respiratory failure, death appearing peaceful. She read the same paragraph 3 times. Then she opened Kenneth's email on the family laptop he had left logged in 2 weeks ago when she was helping him draft a work letter. A mistake he never realized she remembered. She did not know his password, but she knew the recovery question. His mother's maiden name, Chioma Amadi. He had told her once without thinking. She was inside his inbox in 4 minutes. She did not find a confession. Guilty men rarely wrote confessions. What she found was a pattern. Communications with a lawyer in 2018 regarding the estate of one Ngozi Okafor, deceased. Communications in 2020 regarding the property transfer following the death of one Amaka Okafor. A scanned document from 2022, Adana Okafor's death certificate, cause of death, cardiac arrest, and beneath it, a property transfer document, the Okafor compound and all attached land transferred to Kenneth Okafor as sole surviving heir. 3 women, 3 deaths, 3 property transfers, all within 5 years. Rebecca sat with that information for a very long time. Then she opened her own email and forwarded everything to herself. She photographed the laptop screen. She sent copies to 3 separate addresses. Her sister in Port Harcourt, her friend who worked in a law firm in Lagos, and her own secondary account she had kept private since before the marriage. She turned off the light. She lay down on the bed. She did not sleep, but she was very calm. In the morning, she came downstairs as though nothing had happened. She ate the breakfast the house help prepared. She answered Mama Chioma's questions about her health with quiet courtesy. She told Kenneth she had thought about the tradition and she was willing to discuss it further that evening. Kenneth relaxed visibly. His shoulders dropped. He touched her hand across the breakfast table and smiled. She smiled back. That afternoon, while Kenneth was at his office and Mama Chioma was resting, Rebecca walked to the local police station. She did not go to the one nearest the compound. She took a keke napep 2 kilometers further and she asked to speak to someone senior. She was directed to an inspector named Ifyong, a quiet, heavy-set man with reading glasses pushed up on his forehead, who listened to everything she said without interrupting. She placed her phone on his desk and showed him the emails. She explained what she had found. She told him about the 3 wives, the fattening room, the Calabar bean, the property transfers. Inspector Ifyong looked at a long time. Then he looked at her. Then he called someone. Rebecca went back to the compound that evening as though she had been shopping. She brought chin-chin for the children in the compound. She sat with Mama Chioma on the veranda and listened to stories about the family. She laughed at the right moments. She was the best actress she had ever been. They came the next morning, 4 officers and Inspector Ifyong in plain clothes at the gate. Kenneth had just finished his tea. Mama Chioma was in the kitchen. The compound did not go silent this time. It exploded. Relatives who had been sleeping, dressing, moving through the morning routine came pouring out of rooms and doors. Children ran, women shouted. Kenneth walked out to the gate and his face, the face that had smiled at her across the breakfast table, collapsed in a way that Rebecca told her everything she suspected was true. He knew. He had always known. When Effiong's men entered the initiation room, they found a carved wooden shelf behind a false wall. On it, 3 clay pots, a bundle of dried Calabar bean pods, a mortar stained dark, small woven bags with powdered residue, a journal in Mama Chioma's handwriting dating back 11 years. The journal was the end of everything. It was not a confession in simple words. It was instructions, preparations, dosages, notes written in the careful hand of a woman who had done this before and intended to do it again. Beside each set of instructions was a name: Ngozi, Amaka, Adanna. And at the bottom of the last page, in fresh ink that had not yet faded, Rebecca. The officer who found it called Effiong over quietly. Effiong read it. Then he walked back across the compound to where Rebecca was standing near the main entrance, watching everything with her arms folded. He said, "We have everything we need." She nodded once. Mama Chioma was arrested at the kitchen door, still holding a wooden spoon. She did not go quietly. She screamed about tradition, about the ancestors, about ungrateful wives who did not know their place. The compound heard every word. The neighbors heard. The children heard. Kenneth was arrested at the gate. He did not scream. He looked at Rebecca as the officers led him forward, and for one long moment they held each other's gaze across the compound dust. His eyes said things his mouth had never said. Maybe guilt, maybe something that was once love, maybe just the shock of a man who never believed he would be caught. Rebecca looked at him steadily. She did not look away first. The story broke within 48 hours. A journalist Rebecca had contacted through her lawyer friend had been waiting. The headline ran on 2 national news platforms. Kenneth Okafor and his mother Chioma Amadi were named. The compound address was published. The journal extracts were quoted. By the end of the week, 3 families had come forward. The families of Ngozi, Amaka, and Adanna, women whose deaths were signed off as natural, whose property was quietly absorbed, whose graves sat in a church cemetery 3 streets from the compound. Their families had grieved and moved on because they had no evidence and no one to listen. Now they had both. The legal proceedings took 8 months. Rebecca was not in Calabar for most of them. She had gone back to Port Harcourt within a week of the arrest, back to her school, her classroom, her students who needed her to show up every morning and teach them biology with the same steadiness she had always brought. She filed for the annulment herself. Her lawyer, the friend in Lagos, handled the rest. What Rebecca had not known, and what the lawyer discovered during the property review, was a clause buried inside the Okafor family land documents. A clause the family patriarch had inserted decades ago, likely without understanding its full legal weight. It stated that in the event of the dissolution of a marriage from the Okafor male line due to criminal conduct by the male party, the surviving wife retained right of settlement from family assets. Kenneth had inherited 3 properties through 3 deaths. The court ruled that all 3 were proceeds of coordinated criminal conduct. They were seized. A portion, calculated through the settlement clause, was assigned to Rebecca. She did not want the compound. She sold her portion and divided the money between the 3 families. Ngozi's mother received a share. Amaka's sister received a share. Adanna's father, an old man in Anambra who buried her daughter believing she died of a broken heart, received a share. Rebecca kept nothing from the Okafor name. Not the money, not the property, not even the surname. What she kept was her classroom, her books, her instincts, the sharp, steady mind that had walked into a dark compound in Calabar and refused to enter a room with no windows. Mama Chioma was convicted on 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. She was sentenced to life imprisonment. She was 63 years old. Kenneth Okafor was convicted as an accessory to murder, conspiracy, and fraud. He was sentenced to 22 years. He served his first year in a federal correctional facility in Calabar, 3 streets from the compound where 3 women had trusted him and died. The initiation room was demolished by court order. The clay pots, the mortar, the journal, all entered as evidence and sealed in state archives. The shrine at the back of the compound where the family had burned incense for generations was dismantled by Adana's father on the day the verdict was read. He traveled from Anambra with 2 of his sons. They worked quietly and thoroughly, and when they were done, there was nothing left but clean earth. He said nothing to the press. He simply got back in his car and drove home. Rebecca returned to the compound once, not to stay, not to collect anything. She stood at the gate on a quiet Wednesday afternoon, alone, and looked at the old clay walls that had once held so many secrets. The compound was empty now. The relatives had scattered. The children who used to run between the buildings had gone with their parents to other towns, other lives. She stood there for a few minutes. Then she turned and walked back to the road. She did not look back. There is a kind of strength that does not announce itself. It does not shout in a compound or break down a door. It stands still in a yellow Ankara blouse on a Tuesday evening and says no, quietly, firmly, completely, and then it goes upstairs and does what needs to be done. Rebecca had that kind of strength. She had always had it. She simply never needed to use it at full power before. 3 women who came before her had not been given the chance to refuse. She refused for herself, and in refusing, gave them something they could no longer claim for themselves: justice, named and delivered and sealed in public record. She was 34 years old. She had her classroom, her students, her books, and every day ahead of her still clean and unwritten. That was enough. That was everything. Now, here is the question this story leaves behind. When a tradition is used to cover a crime, is it still a tradition, or is it just a weapon with a beautiful name? Drop your answer in the comments. We want to hear what you think. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs it today. And drop a comment. We want to hear from you. God bless you.